So friends, I was in federal court in Alexandria, Virginia today, and I watched Judge Leonie Brinkema deliver a judicial smackdown of Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and of Donald Trump's $1.8 billion so-called weaponization fund, which is really an insurrection fund, or maybe more directly, a cop beaters fund. So friends, there were some fireworks in court today when a federal judge pressed a DOJ attorney on some of the nonsense he was saying about Donald Trump's $1.8 billion weaponization fund. Let's start with the new reporting, and then I want to share with you some of my observations of today's court hearing. But first, this reporting from NBC News. Headline: Federal judge indefinitely blocks Trump's anti-weaponization fund. The judge said that she's concerned if the fund isn't really dead, that it might come back in a different form. And that article begins: a federal judge in Virginia on Friday extended her block on the Trump administration's anti-weaponization fund, frustrated that the Department of Justice has not said, under the penalty of perjury, whether the fund is truly dead. U.S. District Judge Leonie Brinkema said none of those statements from Blanche, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, or the president have been made under the penalty of perjury. Earlier this month, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche told House lawmakers, we're not moving forward with the fund, period. But the next day, President Donald Trump told reporters, I don't know, when asked whether the fund was on hold or eliminated. Brinkema also drilled down on Justice Department Attorney Andrew Block, who has not answered why the Department of Justice has not formally rescinded its memo related to the creation of the anti-weaponization fund. Quote, I don't have the ability to speak directly to the Attorney General, Block said, which prompted this quote from the judge. Quote, I cannot believe, given the significance, you don't have an answer? Brinkema shot back. She added, there's a huge gap in the record if we don't have an answer to that question. The ongoing lawsuit stems from the Trump administration's announcement last month that it planned to set up a $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund aimed at paying people who have suffered weaponization and lawfare from the federal government. The fund could have been used to pay those who were charged and later pardoned by Trump for their action on January 6, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol. In an interview last week with NBC News, the president didn't rule out paying January 6th attendees who were later charged for assaulting law enforcement officers. Judge Brinkema on Friday said she's concerned that if this fund isn't really dead, it might come back in a different form. Quote, when the president of the United States says he's going to be pretty upset if something happens, that's a pretty good incentive to do something, Judge Brinkema said. Okay, friends, now, can I take you through what happened in court today, just in kind of stream of consciousness fashion? I will say it was a thing of beauty to behold. It even gave me sort of justice goosebumps. That's how good it was. First of all, as I said, this was a judicial smackdown by Judge Brinkema of the DOJ lawyer who was in there, of Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche's mealy-mouthed nonsense about whether the fund is really dead or not, whether it can be resurrected. And more generally, it was a takedown of the $1.8 billion cop beaters fund, which is going to be funded at taxpayers' expense. Judge Brinkema was having none of it. But here's how she started. It was a thing of beauty. The DOJ lawyer stood up, and before he could get his opening salvo out, Judge Brinkema said, wait a minute. A similar case to this, nearly identical, was heard by Judge Richard Leon just across the river in federal court in D.C. 2 days ago, and you were the DOJ attorney, correct? And the DOJ lawyer said, yes, Your Honor. And Judge Leon asked you, why hasn't Attorney General Todd Blanche formally, legally rescinded the agreement that set up the weaponization fund? Why hasn't he done that? Because you want me to dismiss this case as moot, meaning there's no chance the weaponization fund will ever be created or resurrected. Why hasn't Todd Blanche formally and legally rescinded the agreement setting up the fund? And you told Judge Leon 2 days ago, I don't know, Your Honor. I don't have an answer to that question. And Judge Brinkema was holding the transcript of the proceedings before Judge Leon from 2 days earlier. So then Judge Brinkema pressed on. She said, well, I'm sure that after that hearing, what you did was you went back to the Department of Justice and you either talked to the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, to get an answer to that question, or you talked to your direct supervisor so he or she could get an answer to the court's question, because you knew 2 days later you were going to be in this courtroom on the identical issue being asked the same question. So did you do that? No, Your Honor. So you still have no answer to why Todd Blanche hasn't formally rescinded this weaponization fund agreement? No, Your Honor. And then she said, and I quote, I cannot believe, given the significance of this, you don't have an answer to that question. But then Judge Brinkema moved on, and she started going through the elements that a judge must assess when deciding if the judge is going to issue a preliminary injunction. So terms of art here. About a week ago or so, Judge Brinkema issued a temporary restraining order, but that's for a very brief period of time. And it basically told DOJ, stop, do not pass go, do not collect $200, do not distribute $200 to a cop beater, do not do anything to move the weaponization fund forward. She issued that temporary restraining order, but that is really only designed to be in place for about a week. And today's issue was, should she extend that by issuing a preliminary injunction, which is the same stop order, but a preliminary injunction can last the entire life of the litigation, which could be months or sadly even years. So that was the issue today. Should I convert the temporary restraining order into a preliminary injunction? And there are some issues, some elements that she has to take on in trying to resolve that question. One, do the plaintiffs in the case, the people in the organizations who filed this lawsuit, do they have standing? Do they have a dog in the fight? Might they be injured by this fund? And she said, yes, undoubtedly, the plaintiffs have standing to bring this lawsuit. Second issue or element, do the plaintiffs have a likelihood of success on the merits? Because that's a factor in whether the court should issue a preliminary injunction. And Judge Brinkema said, undoubtedly, they have a likelihood of success on the merits, given the filings in this case and the evidence of which I'm aware. Another issue, the third issue or element a judge takes up when deciding if a preliminary injunction should be issued, this one was beautiful, friends. Irreparable harm. In other words, if a preliminary injunction is put in place, a permanent stop work order, the weaponization fund may not move forward, not 1 inch. If that kind of an injunction is put in place, will the federal government, the Department of Justice, the executive branch suffer irreparable harm? The plaintiffs will suffer irreparable harm if there is no preliminary injunction. The judge was persuaded by that. But will DOJ, the executive branch, suffer irreparable harm if I continue to keep that stop work order in place? And I have to quote what the DOJ lawyer said, and even more importantly, Judge Brinkema's response, because this was a thing of beauty. Here is how the DOJ lawyer answered the question, will the executive branch suffer irreparable harm if I put this preliminary injunction in place? He said, well, the harm is to the government's ability to conduct lawful business. And in knee-jerk fashion, Judge Brinkema shot back, you think this is lawful business? Oof, that's going to leave a mark. She didn't even seem to have time to reflect. And what that demonstrated was that there's nothing lawful about this so-called weaponization fund, insurrection fund, cop beaters fund, taxpayers' dollars going to pay the people who beat cops to try to stop Joe Biden's election win and keep Donald Trump in the power of the presidency unlawfully and unconstitutionally, stop the certification of a presidential election. And so when she snapped back, you think this is lawful business of government that y'all are engaged in here? Then what she transitioned to is, you do know, DOJ attorney, there is another case involving this issue up and running down in federal court in Florida. And the judge has reopened the lawsuit Donald Trump brought against himself, settled, and awarded himself a settlement of a $1.8 billion fund to do with as he pleases. You realize the judge reopened that case to see if Trump and DOJ perpetrated a fraud on the court. You are aware of that, yes? And I think that's what she was getting at by asking, you're saying this is lawful business of government? It was a beautiful moment. And here's one of my other favorite moments. When the plaintiff's attorney, and I should say that a great nonprofit organization, Democracy Forward, is counsel of record. They are the attorneys representing all of the plaintiffs in this case, and I think there are 4 or 5 different plaintiffs. When the plaintiff's attorney was asked about possible irreparable harm to the Department of Justice, to the executive branch, if this preliminary injunction is put in place and they have to stop all work on moving the weaponization fund forward, plaintiff's counsel said, Judge, there's a real inconsistency here based on what DOJ is trying to peddle to you. These are my words, not the lawyers. I'm taking liberties here. But the lawyer said, on the one hand, this DOJ attorney says that the executive branch will suffer real harm if you make us stop our efforts to move the weaponization fund forward. But they also argue that this case should be dismissed as moot because they have decided they will not move the weaponization fund forward. You don't have to be a lawyer to see the searing, nonsensical contradiction. Judge, we'd suffer irreparable harm if you tell us to stop something that we've already decided to stop. That makes no damn sense. And Judge Brinkema was having none of it. She wasn't born yesterday. She saw exactly what DOJ was trying to do, have it all ways, with a very real possibility that they're going to resurrect this fund if the judge just goes ahead and dismisses this case without putting any lawful order in place that they may not move forward with the fund. So here's what she ultimately did. She issued the preliminary injunction. Done. Do not pass go, do not collect or pay out $200 from the weaponization fund. And she said, but you know what, DOJ? I'll give you 1 week. You want to convince me that you are not going forward with this weaponization fund? You want me to dismiss this case as moot because there's nothing for me to decide? Then I expect Todd Blanche to file a sworn declaration under the penalties of perjury telling me he has rescinded the agreement that created the fund, and the fund is absolutely dead. It's buried. It will not and cannot be resurrected in any form. This is what she communicated. I'm taking liberties with the language. And by the way, Judge Brinkema said, I don't just want Todd Blanche's signature on that sworn declaration under the penalties of perjury. I also want the signature of Secretary of the Treasury.